Jaden and Jordan grew up on the same street in a small suburban neighborhood. Jaden's home was modest, the kind of house where doors creaked, windows rattled in the wind, and dinner was often whatever could be thrown together from the pantry. His mother worked long hours as a nurse, and his father, when he was home, was either too exhausted or absent from Jaden's life altogether. Jordan, on the other hand, lived in a large house with white picket fences, well-manicured lawns, and a warmth that seemed to extend far beyond the walls. Jaden and Jordan met when they were 7, playing basketball at the local park. Despite their different backgrounds, a natural friendship bloomed between them. Jordan was easygoing, always quick to laugh, and never shy about sharing anything he had. Jaden, quieter and more reserved, felt a sense of belonging whenever he was with Jordan, as though he'd stepped into a different world when they were together. Jordan's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Miller, noticed this friendship almost immediately. Instead of just inviting Jaden over for an occasional playdate, they made him a regular part of their lives. Soon, Jaden was at their house nearly every day. Whether it was for lunch, sleepovers, or weekend trips, the Millers treated Jaden like he was their own son. Whenever they bought Jordan a new toy or a pair of shoes, they got Jaden the same. If Jordan needed new school supplies, Jaden did too. For Jaden, it felt like a dream. There was no judgment in the Miller household. Despite the racial differences or the financial gap between the two families, none of it seemed to matter. Mr. Miller would ruffle Jaden's hair affectionately, while Mrs. Miller would make sure he had an extra serving of dessert after dinner. They included him in everything, from family movie nights to holidays, even taking him on beach vacations during the summer. Jaden's own mother was incredibly grateful for the kindness the Millers showed her son, even though she never fully expressed it. The truth was, she knew Jaden was missing something at home: stability, consistency, and a sense of family beyond her single-handed effort to raise him. The Millers gave Jaden what she couldn't, and for that, she felt both relieved and indebted. Life went on this way for years, the boys growing closer with every passing day. The Millers became a second family to Jaden, providing a space where he could be a carefree kid, where he didn't have to worry about the struggles that loomed over his home life. With Jordan and his family, Jaden was just Jaden, a boy laughing, playing, and dreaming. But life has a way of changing when you least expect it. Just as they were about to start high school, Mr. Miller got a job offer overseas, and the family had to move. It was sudden, and it was painful for both boys. Jaden, now 14, felt like his whole world was being ripped away. For the first time, he realized just how much he had relied on the Millers, not just for material things, but for the love and warmth they had given him without question. The day they left, Jaden stood outside their house, watching the moving truck pull away, his heart heavy. Jordan leaned out of the back seat window, waving wildly, yelling, "We'll keep in touch, I promise." Jaden waved back, knowing that things would never be the same. He was right. High school without Jordan felt like a different universe. Though they wrote letters and sent the occasional email, the friendship that had once been effortless became strained by the distance and the passage of time. Jaden poured himself into his studies, determined to make something of himself. He finished high school with good grades, went to college on a scholarship, and eventually built a life he could be proud of. But he never forgot the kindness the Millers had shown him during those formative years. He never forgot how they treated him like one of their own, without regard to the color of his skin or the struggles of his family. It was a debt he could never repay, and one that, deep down, he wasn't sure how to express. 20 years later, Jaden was walking through his old neighborhood, now an accomplished professional, when he spotted a familiar face. He stopped in his tracks, heart pounding in his chest. It was Jordan. His childhood friend, now an adult, was walking toward him with a surprised look on his face. "Jaden?" Jordan said, squinting as though he couldn't believe it. "Jordan," Jaden breathed, smiling widely. "It's been too long." They embraced, the years melting away in that instant. For a moment, they were kids again, laughing, catching up on everything that had happened since the Millers moved overseas. Jordan had started a family of his own, and Jaden was doing well in his career. But as the conversation deepened, there was something Jaden needed to say, something he had carried with him for years. "You know, your parents," Jaden began, hesitating slightly. They really helped me out back then. I don't think I've ever told you, but they were like family to me. They did more for me than I could have ever imagined." Jordan frowned, clearly confused. "What do you mean? We were just kids hanging out. I didn't think it was a big deal." Jaden shook his head. "No, man, it was more than that. Your parents knew my family was struggling. They knew I didn't have much, but they never made me feel less. They bought me things, took me on trips, made me feel like I belonged. It wasn't just about hanging out. They treated me like their own son. It changed my life." Jordan's face crumpled as the realization hit him. He had never known, never fully grasped the impact his parents' kindness had on Jaden. Tears welled up in his eyes, his voice cracking. "I didn't know, Jaden. I didn't know they did all that for you." Jaden smiled softly, reaching out to place a hand on Jordan's shoulder. "You were just a kid. You didn't have to know. But your parents, they saw me. They saw me for who I was, not where I came from or the color of my skin. They gave me more than just stuff. They gave me hope, man. They gave me love." Jordan's tears flowed freely now, his body shaking with emotion. I, I never realized. I never thought about it like that." Jaden squeezed his shoulder. "It's okay. What matters is that it happened. I just want you to know how grateful I am. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for them." The two men sat there in silence for a moment, both overwhelmed by the emotions of the reunion. It wasn't just about the past. It was about what had been given freely: kindness, love, and acceptance, regardless of race or background. In that quiet moment, everything was laid bare. The boys they had once been were now men, but the bond forged in childhood had endured. Jordan's tears weren't just for what he hadn't known, but for the realization that his parents had made a difference in a way he'd never understood. And Jaden, for the first time in his life, felt a weight lift from his chest. The gratitude he had carried for decades had finally found its way into the open, and in doing so, it had brought him and Jordan closer than ever. Theirs was a story of kindness beyond race, a testament to how love, no matter how quietly given, could shape a life forever.